Alicia's story, take one, marker.
My adolescent years were pretty typical. I grew up with my mom and my dad and did all the fun things that a girl does. I did Girl Scouts and church youth groups and all of the things that I could have access to. But I had a lot of early years church trauma. And what I mean by that was very judged in church. My parents were smokers and they danced and they didn't come to church, but they sent their kids, you know? So there was a lot of judgment from our church, the church I grew up in. And this was our family church. So my brother was married in this church and I got godparents out of this church. But my relationship in the beginning was really rough because even from a very young age, I remember feeling judged, not good enough. And I didn't fit in at church. So if I didn't fit in with God, there's no way I was going to fit in technically anywhere else. It was really tough. And I remember very vividly my youth group, pastor's wife, when I was young. We went on a canoe trip and my mom had packed me a 2-piece bathing suit. And I was basically told to put my shirt on and was sexualized for the first time by my youth group pastor's wife. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm not doing it for attention, but then I must be doing it for attention because she said so. And these were people I trusted. So not long after that, I was sexually assaulted by a classmate. You can still hear the song that was playing on the radio. And I went into complete blaming myself for that because I did like the kid. We were going to be boyfriend and girlfriend. So I must have asked for it, right? And so then the second thing was my parents were not home and it was a snow day. And I was specifically told not to let anybody in the house, but I did. And then I must be asking for it because I'm this slut, if you will, in the church youth group who likes all the boys all the time. I was a young girl figuring it out, and instead of guided, I was shamed. And so my sexuality became a weapon, if you will, a mask for me, because then you couldn't take what I would give freely at that point. And I didn't care then because I must be dirty and I must be just not worthy. I struggled a lot with that for a long time. Dating guys, dating girls, because then it became cool to like girls at the same time. And so I experimented with both male and female and kind of labeled myself bisexual when I didn't even really need that label. It was masking the pain. And I became wrapped up in being all inclusive, didn't matter who you were, that it allowed me to numb the pain of what I went through. Because I must be a liar. I must be not telling the truth that really happened. It couldn't be. Because it must be, if I was telling you why something was happening as a child to me, you must be thinking, and this stemmed with my parents, I must be trying to get out of trouble from something else. So I knew immediately I wasn't to talk about it because it wasn't anything that they wanted to talk about or hear. So I learned at a very early age to shut up, be seen and not heard. And again, no fault to my parents, but that's how they grew up. You know, I remember very vividly my childhood. My parents would go out bowling and they didn't leave me with anybody, but they took me to bowling alleys and I would sleep in bowling alleys while they midnight bowled with all their friends. So I heard all the adult talk, and my mom always said I was nosy and I wanted in everything. Well, I had nobody to hang out with but adults. So I learned adult things very early in life. Probably conversations I shouldn't have been a part of, but I was a kid just trying to make it and figure it out. My encounter, my sexual assault, took away any trust that I had in people. Mind you, this is somebody I went to school and then had to see every day. And I couldn't say anything because it might tarnish his reputation. And then I was wrong. And like, I didn't even know what gaslighting was, but I initiated it because I let him in the house. It was my fault. So, of course, I don't want to get in trouble. But before this, if we backed up just a few years, I was playing with my dollhouse. It was a giant dollhouse. It was my favorite dollhouse. I loved it. I was 13. A lot of my friends made fun of me because I still played with my dollhouse, but I loved it. And I was playing with my dollhouse one day, and a girl called my parents and told my parents that I was having sex with this kid from youth group, all because she got caught sneaking out of her house. And I friended up and told on her because she did. And I thought that was the right thing to do, but instead it became an attack on me. So she called my parents to tell them I was having sex. I was not having sex. Instead of my parents coming into the room and being like, what happened? What's going on? They whisked me off to an OBGYN for a pap smear at the age of 13 years old. I've never even experienced this before. So that the doctor could put in writing that I still had everything intact. Then they took the paper and went to friends and family's houses and showed the paper to prove that this girl was lying instead of just taking my word for it. Trust was out the window a long time before the sexual assault and being believed. Drinking began, but it wasn't until I was 16 that drinking began. But drinking in my family was very normal. We drank it. There's alcohol at every family function, birthdays, funerals. It doesn't matter what the occasion. It could be wine on the porch, and that's an event. 21 didn't matter. No, 21 didn't matter. There was drinking, there was smoking, there was everything. And I knew that I didn't want to smell. So I never smoked because I hated that my parents did it. So then when the drinking came into play, it was these same adult people that were around me that were purchasing my alcohol for me for party nights. So then I became popular because everybody knew I had access. Well, then group sex started with that. Drinking led into group sex for me because then it was like a free-for-all. Then again, you can't take something from me that I'm freely giving away. And so I very quickly earned a reputation of being a whore or a slut, if you will. But I was comfortable with that because then I was something that I knew I could control, which looking back now, I'm like, wow, that's so crazy. But yeah. And then I had long-term boyfriends in high school. I was like a serial long-term dater, but was never faithful. And actually was in love with my high school sweetheart. And because I hadn't dealt with any of this trauma, didn't even know it was trauma, didn't even know what the heck was going on, I sabotaged that relationship and cheated. My friend was the one, we were together a long time, and my friend started dating his brother and let the cat out of the bag and made sure everybody knew how bad I was. So trust, again, I didn't even trust my friends. I couldn't trust anybody in my life because everybody always walked away, or everybody's made sure to point out how bad I was instead of actually coming to me and saying, hey, you need to stop this. I've been best friends with the same girl since I was 11 years old, and she was 13, and she was our pastor's daughter. So they had this in with our family when they always knew what was going on, and I felt very judged by them growing up, and we since have made amends and have a beautiful relationship. But it was a very tough relationship in the beginning because these are people that I should have been able to trust, and I knew that I was being looked down upon always. We are still best friends to this day, and we've gone the ebb and flow and gone through crazy things together. We found guys together. We found God together. It's been a roller coaster, but she's the one person I do trust. She's the one person that I trusted all along, even though we fought like cats and dogs. But even then, I still didn't tell her everything for fear of judgment. So I never knew how to just be open with anyone for fear of what they're going to think or what's going to happen to me. I was very involved with track and cheerleading when I was in high school, and I had a knee injury that tore my meniscus, and went and saw a doctor, and they scheduled surgery, and pain pills began at the age of 18. Wasn't really addicted at that point. Didn't have an issue until my second meniscus tear. and a diagnosis of endometriosis, which is a female disease of basically all of your baby making area. And so I was diagnosed with endometriosis and a second meniscus tear, and was put back into surgery. And this time I was down a lot longer, and the pain was a lot worse, and the pills made a lot more sense, and they were longer. And at the time I worked at a doctor's office, and so I was getting pain pills from the gynecologist, and I was getting pain pills from the family doctor, and I was getting pain pills from the sports medicine doctor. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And everybody was just handing them out. And so it began. And I'll never forget the day a coworker said, "Oh, just chasing your pills again?" And I was like, what the heck do you know about that? I'm not a drug addict. I'm not a pill chaser. What? And then like not even a week later, I was calling in my own prescriptions because I learned how to do it from the doctor's office. So that began my addiction. Was really bad from the ages of like 20 to 23 is when it got really, really strong and really bad in my life. Looking back at the root system, I never dealt with the broken girl that felt she could just be herself. I never felt accepted or wanted. And looking at how that grew into one thing to another thing, they were always things I didn't expect to happen or plan to happen. But then they happened, and then I didn't deal with it. And I kept shoving it down until one day it was just too late. The root system affected me in a way that I've been married 3 times. And the divorces weren't always the other person's fault. I am very closed off. I'm very open. I mean, I go from one extreme to the next, and trust is still very hard for me. Abandonment issues are still very hard for me. Nate will tell you that I'm constantly asking if I'm going to get fired. Anytime he tells me I have to meet with Adam or with the bosses for whatever reason, and it could be a good job I'm doing, but I'm always worried I'm going to get fired. I'm still waiting for the shoe to drop where I'm not good enough for even helping someone else. I'm not one that can take praise well. I want to put it back on someone else. Like, yes, this was great, but that was better. Or thank you very much. When we were shooting the Remedy tour, it was my first time ever speaking in front of students. And I didn't sleep the night before because I was nervous about young kids. And Clinton said to me that I was a hero. And I felt like I got punched in the stomach at that moment, because I don't feel like anything I've done in my life has been heroic in any way. I feel like I've just clung to the trenches to make something different of my life after the crap I put myself through. My mental health was never allowed to be talked about. We didn't talk about mental health in my family. Therapy was not a thing. We did not do that. So I didn't even feel like there was anybody I could go to. I didn't even know that there were services or anything that I could do. It wasn't until I was an young adult, out on my own and finding this struggle with substance abuse, because now I had had multiple surgeries. I was addicted to pain pills. I knew I was addicted, not even really sure what that meant or what that looked like. And then my legal troubles started, and I was mandated to go to therapy, to go to these classes. And I'm like, so you're telling me that the people who get me the most are sitting here in jail with me? This is where I'm accepted? This cannot make sense. And I did this cycle of in and out of jail for 10 years, on and off. My addiction was very rampant. I took down too many people with me, with not even a care, because I didn't understand what I was doing. Everyone says, but you know addiction's right and wrong, and you know you shouldn't write your own prescriptions. But in the moment, it felt safer than going to the streets, because I knew that I wasn't going to survive on the streets. So it felt like the next right thing to do in my addiction. So I wrote prescriptions. I'm a 14-time convicted felon, with many of them off the books. So I've served time in every Indiana women's prison there is. and have given much of my time to the Department of Corrections. But it was in the Department of Corrections where I found true freedom. And I remember the day that I first felt and understood the grace of God. When I felt the grace of God and God's grace to still rise me from the ashes of the life that I shattered, that He gave me. And I shattered it, and He said, I'm not done with you yet. Because I didn't die. 3 days before I was incarcerated for the last time, I tried to take my own life. In the garage of my family home. I was married at the time. He was a paramedic, and he was on duty at the station closest to our house. So had I succeeded, my husband would have been the one to find me and have to revive me. Looking back, praise Jesus that I didn't do that. But I was in the garage, and I was letting the car fumes fill the garage, and I had a dog. And this dog was the most gentle, sweetest dog. But he knew something was wrong. I was struggling with postpartum depression. I was a new mom on drugs. I relapsed. All of these things. So my brain chemistry is completely out of whack. And I think I'm better off dead. I can't keep doing this to everybody. I knew I was going back to prison. I knew the warrants had been served again and again. The warrant people came to my house so many times that the dog quit barking at them. He thought they were our friends. So as I went to take my own life, the dog kept barking and barking and barking and whining and clawing at the door. And I literally knew I couldn't do it to my dog. Not my newborn baby that I had no attachment to at this point. Not my husband, not my parents. Who would take care of my dog? So when I'm in the Department of Corrections and I feel the grace of God and I know that my life is going to be better and I know I'm going to be something, I don't know what yet, and I know I'm going to start from the bottom and I'm scared to death, but it was in that moment that I completely surrendered. And I said, I trust you, Jesus. I know you have me. And I can't tell you how many times I repeat that phrase, I trust you, Jesus. I trust you, Jesus, because He had me. I clung to my Bible. I clung to verses as if He was speaking to me directly. I struggled. Still, there's no perfect way to do this, and I still struggled. I was incarcerated and trying to go through a divorce and a new mom without her baby and other people raising her baby, which I'm so thankful for. But just literally being in a prison yard, everything is around you and all you can do is walk in a lap like a rat. And you look and all you see are fences all around you. It wasn't until I realized the answer wasn't in the fence. I had to look up. There is no fence. I was free, even on the inside. So I had to start living as such. So my life changed and I started going to therapy, Celebrate Recovery, diving into who I am as a person, and not only who I am as a person and loving her, all the mess. Because man, I had some crying fits having to come to terms with some of the things that I did to the people that I loved. When I hear people talk about addicts and how they should die because they don't care what they do to other people, they don't know. They know, but they don't know. And when they feel that pain, when they realize that, you better hope you believe in Jesus or you have a good therapist, because if not, it gets ugly really fast. So I spent my time in jail, in prison, finding and searching for myself, knowing that I was going to be better. But also, people on the outside of the fence were very skeptical on if I could really do it or not. And was I being fake and holding up that facade that everybody was going to be okay? And I can't blame them because I did that for so long. So I even struggled with trust again there. And you can't trust anybody in prison. So my trust is completely shut down. I'm going to do what I got to do. there was an opportunity to do a documentary, and these camera crew came to me and they were like, we really want you to tell your story. And I'm thinking, I don't know that I want to. And I prayed about it, and everybody around me kept telling me no. But I heard God saying, if you can help one woman not be away from her baby. So I did the documentary against everybody's wishes and opened up about what prison life is like. Men form gangs. That's how they survive. Women form families. Unfortunately, as women, we're so sexualized that you can't even do that, because then you're automatically labeled gay because you have a wife or a girlfriend or who's this or who's that. And it's like, then you're punished for it anyway. It's the craziest thing I've ever been through in my life. But I had somebody in my life who was very special to me in prison, and she was my family. She was much more than any name that they could give her. And she protected me. She heard me out. She called me out on my BS. And she's part of the reason why I am who I am, because I was able to be real and honest with somebody for the first time in my life. Because what's she gonna do, walk away? No, she's gotta come to the same rec movements I do. She's not going anywhere. There's no such thing as abandonment when you're in jail. Unless you get transferred out, which happened, and it was devastating when that happened. But again, it was the first time I was ever very real with somebody in my life. I'm newly married as of 2020, and he's a parole officer, which we could talk about for a long time. That was God's way of laughing. I always say my Jesus has a sense of humor, and I'm like, look at my husband. But again, I'm real. And he accepts me when I'm put together, and he accepts me when I fall apart, which is like every quarter I have a whole meltdown. And instead of judging myself on those meltdown moments, we embrace them, and I learn from them, and I grow. And I don't harp on myself. You know what? That was a bad 24 hours, but in doing what I do, I absorb a lot of people's hurts, pains, hang-ups, helping people find treatment for substance abuse. And sometimes I needed an outlet, and it can't be drugs, I have to be able to just feel how I feel. And so at home I cry and lock down, and he's there, and we move on. Life is much better now, but I would have never known that was possible unless I didn't stay the course and do the next right thing. So the conversation doesn't have to stop. If this has lit a fire within you and you want to keep talking, the people at Remedy, they're waiting to talk to you. If you're watching this on the website, go ahead and click that chat now box. And if you're watching this from your phone and you feel the need that you want to talk to somebody, text 494949 and somebody will be available for you.